It's a great place to work. Now, when you apply for a job, this is certainly something that you would like to hear from other employees working in the company or organisation that you're applying to. And there's a strategy called employer branding. And employer branding is all about the way a company markets itself, both to its current employees, so the employees working in the company at the moment, and to future potential job candidates. So in this video, we're going to talk about the concept of employer branding and make sure that you can discuss this concept in English. So first of all, what we should do is look at some vocabulary and some expressions. And first of all, we're going to look at a group of words and expressions to do with employer and branding. So let's have a look at the first group. Now in the first group, we've got employer brand, employer branding strategy, employer branding campaign, employer branding slogan, employer advocacy, and brand ambassadors. So let's look at the first one. And the first one is employer brand. Now the employer brand is all about the image, the perception, and the reputation that the company or the organization has. And this image or this reputation is based on the values and the culture that the company promotes and the experiences that the employees have with the company. Then we come on to employer branding strategy. And the strategy is the plan that the company develops in order to promote itself, in order to attract the top talent to the organization. Then we come on to the third one, and the third one is employer branding campaign. And if you look around the internet and you look at different companies, you'll see that they run campaigns in order to promote themselves as an employer. And the campaign is the actions that the company takes in order to achieve the goals of the plan that it set. In conjunction with this, the employer with the campaign might have some kind of branding slogan, and here are some examples of branding slogans. Then we've got employer advocacy, and this is all about encouraging employees to speak about the company to potential job candidates and out to the public at large. And they encourage the employees to talk about the company as a desirable place to work and to talk positively about the company. Brand ambassadors. Now these ambassadors, these are people that are chosen specifically within the company, and they're chosen within the company because they have specific leadership skills or communication skills, or they're very good at inspiring other people. And these in the company, they probably receive some kind of special training and development, and they go out again into the public and they're used to talk on various platforms about the company, to talk positively about the company. Okay, and then we come on to 3 expressions to do with talent. Because employer branding is all about getting the right talent and keeping the right talent. So talent acquisition is all about identifying and attracting and hiring the right people in the recruitment process to fill jobs within the company. And hopefully you're trying to find people who will add value to the company. Now, talent retention then is about keeping that talent in the company. And what you want to do is keep the talent in the company. This in the end promotes the bottom line of the company. It helps the profitability of the company. It helps the employer branding strategy. And it reduces staff fluctuation and staff turnover in the company. And the talent pipeline, well, if you think of a pipeline and water's going along the pipeline, what you always want to do with the pipeline is make sure there's enough water at the top of the pipeline, but there's also enough water behind the pipeline so that you can keep filling the pipeline. And the talent pipeline is just like this. It's making sure that you have a pool of workers that are a good fit for certain job openings that come within your company or your organization. Then we come on to some expressions with employee, and these are employee value proposition, and this is sometimes or very often called EVP for short. There's employee advocacy and there's employee engagement. So let's come on to the first one, which is employee value proposition, or EVP for short. And the EVP is the unique set of benefits and rewards that a company offers to its employees in return for their skills, for their experience and their performance and their talent. Then we come on to employee advocacy. So this is employees talking positively about the company, very often on social media platforms, to attract talent and other employees to the company. Then we come on to employee engagement. And employee engagement is all about the level of commitment that employees feel towards not only their work, but also their colleagues and their employer. So let's come on to the final group of expressions, and these are candidate experience, diversity and inclusion, perks and benefits, and employer reputation. So let's come on to the first one, and the first one is candidate experience. And the candidate experience is all about the hiring process or the recruitment process. And it's all about the experience that the company has with the company and its interactions with the employees of the company when the candidate goes through the hiring process and the recruitment process. So then we come on to diversity and inclusion. And when we come on to the features of employer branding, you'll see that many companies support a policy of diversity and inclusion. And this is promoting a workplace that supports an environment where that includes different genders, different races, different cultures, people from different backgrounds within the organization. All in all, it's about, and the key word here is about promoting equal opportunities in the company. Then we come on to perks and benefits. Now, perks and benefits are all about these features of employer branding. And they're often used interchangeably, but perks are all those little extra things that a company offers in the organization. So it could be things like free meals and snacks and free drinks within the company. There could be gaming rooms and lounge areas and these kind of things. Benefits are mostly to do with the money that you're getting from the company, to do with the compensation that you get from the company. So this includes your basic salary, but there could be extra bonuses with your salary. It would also include things like pay rises and things like that. So then we come on to the employer reputation. And this reputation is not only the reputation that you have with the employees that you have at the moment and future job candidates, but it's also to do with the wider public and the image that your company has based on the actions and the policies that your company has. So these were some of the expressions that you would need in order to be able to discuss employer branding. Now, employer branding has been around since the 1990s, and today it's considered an essential part of company strategy. And it's all about establishing and developing a clear and compelling message about your company. And this message is based on the values of the company, the culture of the company, and the mission of the company. And then it's about putting across that message. As we've seen, it's about putting the message to the employees who work internally. It's about putting the message out to potential job candidates. And it's also about putting the message out to the wider general public. Now, one of the key words with this messaging is consistency. Consistency of message. So making sure that when you're using different platforms, so this could be various platforms on social media, it could be job postings, it could be internal communication, it's making sure that that message is put out consistently. You're putting the same message on all those different platforms. Then it's about fulfilling your messaging and making sure that your employees have a good and positive experience about working in your company. Let's look at some of the features to do with employer branding. So there are different things that companies can include in their employer value proposition. And again, depending on that company, the organization, the type of products and services that it sells, and its values and its culture and its mission. So let's go through these. Now, the first feature will be to do with money, and this is to do with compensation. It's to do with benefits. And it's making sure that the company pays reasonably, that it pays well, that it's known as paying a good salary, that there are good benefits within the company, there are bonuses, and maybe even that the company pays even very generous salaries. Then we've got things like training and development. The company has a really good training and development program, and there's lots of opportunities in the company for lifelong learning and training on the skills that you need in the job. Wellness programs, there will be emphasis on work-life balance. There will be maybe things like childcare arrangements in the company. There might be free meals, free snacks in the company. There might be areas in the company where employees can go and relax. There might be gaming rooms, lounging. There might even be rooms in the company where people can go and sleep and have a nap. There might be gyms, there might be fitness classes. Maybe the company offers sabbaticals. A sabbatical, if you don't know what a sabbatical is, this is when an employee is given the opportunity to take off a longer period away from their workplace. This could be around a period, for example, of a year. And you might want to take a year off for different reasons. Maybe you want to go and travel, or maybe you want to follow a particular personal project or do some personal research. And the company will offer these opportunities for sabbaticals, and they may pay, or this might be paid or it might be unpaid. There are different other things like offering flexible work arrangements so that you can work in different locations. Maybe sometimes you can work in the office and maybe sometimes you can work at home. There might be a general commitment to social responsibility in the company. As we saw with diversity and inclusion, there might be a lot to do with encouraging a supportive and inclusive workplace. So these are some examples of features of employer branding. So why is employer branding important? Well, as we've discussed, employer branding is all about attracting the top talent and the best talent to your company or to your organization. Now, this has become increasingly important because of various factors. And one of the factors is demographics. Many countries in the world have aging populations, and in some areas in particular, there is really a shortage of skilled workers. And there is a smaller pool of workers who can work in certain areas, and you need to attract from that pool in order to get those people into your company. Also, it's a lot to do with globalization, and globalization is affected by different factors. And one of the factors is technology. And technology is developing at a really fast pace. And technology means today that really that workers have a choice, and they can work in different locations and they can work in different cities around the world. And connected with this, we shouldn't forget English as well. English has grown in this century really to become the global language of business, and there are more and more people learning English as this language of business. And more companies will use English as their working language. So a company situated in Germany or France will be able to attract a global workforce by using English. They can attract workers from India or Australia because people don't have to come to France or Germany to learn French and German, but they can use English in the company. Following this, a good employer branding gives the company what is called a competitive edge or a competitive advantage. And this is really useful in promoting yourself as an employer and keeping the best talent in your company. It will affect the profitability, it affects the bottom line of your company, and it means that there's less staff fluctuation and turnover in your company. And finally, it's important because, as we've seen, it's the reputation and the image of your company in the wider world. When the public and when you hear about companies that have really poor employer branding, well, this affects your perception of the company. And maybe when you're faced with buying a product or a service from that company, because you've heard about the bad employer branding, you might decide that actually you're not going to buy from that company, but you're going to choose from another company. So what would be examples of bad employer branding? Well, these would be companies where you hear that the workers are not treated very well, there's very low pay, there's bad working conditions. There might even be a toxic work culture, and employees report on that on various social media platforms. There might be harassment in the company, so there might be harassment because of gender or because of race or because of cultural background, for example. These might be companies where there's you hear about lots of scandals in the company, there's lots of controversy. These kind of things, they will really affect the public perception of the company. And the opposite, good employer branding, when you hear about companies and people are really happy in the company and people hear that it's a great place to work, this will have the opposite effect. So this was it really. This was some vocabulary to do with employer branding. We've talked about how you put together employer branding, what the features of employer branding could be, and also to talk about why employer branding is important. Now, leading on from this, if you want to discuss employer branding, this could be in a report or a project or in an exam question, or if you're a teacher or you're a trainer of business English, maybe there's some further questions that you can use in the classroom or in the lecture room. So here are some examples of things that you can go into. So find some examples of companies, and again I would just go out on the internet here and have a look around at companies or look at blogs from various people. So find examples of companies that have good or bad employer branding. Now, and then I would discuss why the employer branding is good or bad and what the consequences of that good or that bad employer branding is. Another question you can consider is, well, if you had a startup, what features of employer branding would you put in place and why? Thinking about the global war for talent, how has the workplace changed in recent years? And finally, a question I think that's worth thinking about. I said that employer branding has been around since the 1990s, but is employer branding just a trend, or will it remain a permanent part of company strategy? So this was all I wanted to say about employer branding. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll see you in the next video.